And we've entitled our discussion this morning as the transforming power of the gospel. Say with me, the transforming power of the gospel. Well, it will amaze us as to how powerful this gospel is. How powerful this gospel is. That when it is preached, it changes and transforms a person's life. Amen? You see, the word conversion is most of the time being taken very naive. While the word transformation is something that we need to be talking more and more and more. Because the Bible never talks about conversion, which we most Christians talked about. Talks about transformation. Amen? It's a matter of trans and form. You see, we move on from one to the other. We take a different kind of a formation, a different form, and that is the image of God. Amen? You see, a transformation is important, and the only thing that will transform us really is the gospel. That is what will transform us. And so today on Mission Sunday, we will discuss about this power of how this gospel can transform us. And I'll bring to you an example here on how a gospel can transform even a people's group, even a community, a city, even a nation. God can transform through the power of the gospel. And so in this letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians in chapter 3, he discussed about the old covenant and the new covenant. The old covenant is somewhat hidden. Can you see me? No, you can't, because it's hidden. But the new covenant opens up that very veil which covers. You see, the Old Testament is only a shadow of what the New Testament describes about the person of Jesus. And so in the Old Testament, there's this dimness, there is this darkness, I should say. But in the New Testament, we have the pure light where we can see everything through. And everything becomes clear to us. And that is what the Apostle Paul says here when he writes to the Corinthians. He says, in the Old Covenant, it has what we call as the gospel of death. It preaches death. In the Old Covenant, if anybody sins, then you are deemed to die, isn't it? If you commit certain kinds of acts, you will be stoned to even death. There's no forgiveness in the Old Covenant. That is the covenant that God gave to Moses. But when you come to the New Testament, there is grace. Right? Through the power of the gospel, we can be forgiven. If there were no new covenant, all of us are condemned to where? To hell, isn't it? We all condemned to hell. We should go there. But thank God for the new covenant. And so the Apostle Paul describes about the glory of the new covenant, the beauty of the new covenant. He talks about how powerful this new covenant is, what this new covenant can do to us. He compared that with the old covenant. The old covenant, he says, is the ministry of death. The ministry of death. Who has ever started a ministry called the ministry of death? Nobody has ever started that. Because it talks about the Old Testament. The Old Testament really is a ministry of death, the Apostle Paul says. It has no glory in that. But thank God for the ministry of righteousness, the ministry of light. It brings us into a place where we can be saved and be called his children.